Keflaim l'tashiyah. Since he's a kohen, so I think I have to drink his first. Steht doch, a kohen kommt erst, v'kidashta. Levarich es Amma Yisrael be'ahava. Oh. The literal meaning of the bracha that Kohanim make before they start blessing is Hashem gave us a mitzvah to bless the Jewish people, ba'ava, with love, to do it with ava. It says that a Kohen who hates somebody in the shul, he shouldn't, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that he shouldn't go up to do Birchas Kohanim if he hates somebody. The Rebbe teached once, Levarech es Am Yisrael ba'ava, that's the bracha, to bless the Jewish people with the gift of ahava. And on the Birchas Kohanim. Levarech es Am Yisrael, yeah, of course they should be ba'ava, but that's the bracha. Levarech es Am Yisrael ba'ahava, with the bracha von ahava, with the bracha of love. Yeah. Okay. So Likkutei Torah Parshas Behar, the first mimer, we're holding Perek Gimel, page 80. Yeah. Today's class is generously dedicated by the Ezra David Philip, hoping that this Sfiras HaOmer will polish all of our midos to make them sparkling, to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu. Amen. Wow, beautiful dedication. Thank you. I don't know if as David was mechavan, but there's a maimed that the Rebbe says, "Svartem lachem." Doesn't only mean you should count. Svartem comes from the word Evan Sapir, sapphire stone, which is one of the most bright, sparkling stones. Svartem lachem, you should shine. Svartem lachem. All your midas should start shining like an Evan Sapir. So thank you for the blessing and thank you for your partnership. Okay, so Pischili Achoisi, I'm not going to give a summation from yesterday's class because yesterday was a summation from the previous day's class. Summations are always dangerous. There's an expression, Toisvis miruba ala iker. You know, when you pay interest, sometimes it becomes more than the principles. Taisvis miruba ala iker sometimes is a good thing, and sometimes you get caught up in the taisvis. But the summation of it was Pischi li achoisi and then rayasi, and of course the whole analysis of what planting is, because he spoke about how you make bread, sidura de pas. So there's the planting, there's the grinding, there's the kneading, and there's the baking. Those are the four major components. Of course, in between, there's many more, because after planting, it has to grow. And after growing, you have to harvest it. And after harvesting it, you have to gather them, and then you have to thresh, and you have to winnow, and you have to select, clean up. But that's all part of the kernel, that's dealing with the grain itself. Then there's a new transformative process. In other words, it's all important. But the reason he doesn't turn that into each one a separate thing is because that's all dealing with, you plant, and that's what happens. And then what grows is the seed. Now you have to make sure the seed is out of the chaff, and there's no dirt, and there's no pebbles. But grinding now is a new avoid of transforming. You have a kernel, but what happens now? And then, of course, you have flour, and then you have kneading, and then you have baking. So till here, he explained the concept of planting, barichas. And the main theme was that there's three components in every plant. There's the creative, generative power of growth, what's called koyach hatzemeach. The koyach that the Rebbeinu Shalom invested in the earth. Hakal hayam in offer, like it says in Kehelas, to be able to produce Tache ha'aretz desha, that begins with a koyach eliki, a divine energy that's invested and gives chiyus constantly to the earth to be able to do its function. Of course, you're talking about earth together with all of the components of sunlight and water and oxygen, etc. And that's tache, which is also H das. Then you have the seeds and you have the fruit. The product that we appreciate most is the fruit. But the DNA of the fruit, the genetic code of the fruit, what can produce a new generation of fruits is the seed. And those are the three components he discussed. There's the koyach hatzemeach in the earth, which is responsible for everything, including the original trees and the original seeds. There's the seed, that when that meets the koyach hatzemeach in the earth, the magic of vegetation and botany happens. And then there's the final beautiful product called the fruit, or whatever else grows, maybe a flower, maybe a lily, maybe a rose. This was a mashal for Torah. L'chu lachmu b'lachmi. Torah is compared to bread. Bread begins with planting, just like every fruit, every vegetable. Great, it's great. Torah also has three dimensions. What are the three dimensions? There's the Torah in its source, what's called chachma ilah, divine wisdom, antu chakim v'la b'chachma yediyah, which transcends all definition and description, even the definition of wisdom, which is a finite definition. We call it ayin because it's not a thing, it's no thing. That's the source of Torah, Hashem's inner wisdom. It's the Ein Sof itself. And that's called ayin. It's a koyach eliki, which is tache eish das. There's the way the Torah descends and is morphed into a seed, which has everything inside of it. The seed has all of the potentiality and all of the properties that the koyach hatzemeach gives. In fact, the koyach hatzemeach is manifested in the seed. But on the seed on its own, it's manifested there, it's embedded there, it's hidden there, but it's not going to come out. The seed has to be buried in the earth and completely covered and bottled to the koyach hatzemeach, and then what it already had before, because the seed is basically a physical concretization of the entire creative energy of growth. The embryo, as we said, the embryo is there, the cells are there, the genes, the genetic code is there, the manual, the instructions. And then you have the third thing is the fruit. The way the Torah comes down here, it's called the seed. It's chachmas shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Dvar Hashem Zu Halacha. Every word, every mitzvah, every halach, every detail, every svar, every machlokas, every kasha, every teretz, every tiyufta. That's why before we learn, we make a birchas HaTorah. And what do we say in the morning? Asher baruch habanu mikolam v'nasan lanu es Torasei. Baruch at Hashem noisen HaTorah. And you say that on anything that you learn. Even if you learn a question that's refuted, it's also Torah. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. There's even an opinion that's refuted, and we don't say the halachas like that. It's still divrei Elokim chayim. Why? Because it's a divine frequency. Even if halacha, you don't accept it. Because you can only do one thing. You can't behave, you can't. In fact, the Arizal says that when Mashiach comes, the halacha is going to be like Beis Shammai, not like Beis Hillel. It's very interesting. That's what the Arizal says. The halacha is going to be like Beis Shammai. So the way the Torah comes down, it's still chachmas shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But as the Alter Rebbe says, I can learn Torah my whole life and only hold on to its levushim chitzayim, which means I only hold on to its external garments, which have inside of it the atzmiyas. They have in it the core of chachmas shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But my relationship with it is one in which I can't experience or see the divine, infinite bliss that flows, that vibrates through it, because it is concretized in the things that look, very, very gashmistic. A person could sit a whole year, 3 years, and learn the halachas of nida or ziva. So you're learning about blood and what type of blood and how the blood happens and when it comes and when it doesn't come. Every svara in nida is a lakus. Every svara is a lakus. It's Ein Sof. But you have to have a sensitivity to it. They say that when the Alter Rebbe that's what they say about Chassidin, that he would learn with the Mittler Rebbe, his son. So how he described Shulchan Aruch. So he would say like this: Lamer learn in the pasuk Chumash. You're talking about. Let's learn what it says in Chumash. Now let's see what the Mishnah says about this. Let's see what the Mishnah says. Let's see what Rashi says, what Tosfos says, what the Rishonim says. Now let's learn the Gemara. So learn the Gemara, the whole sugya, how to understand it, the questions, the answers, the proofs. And then he says, he would open a Shulchan Aruch, and he'd say, "Und jetzt lassen sehen, was der Eibishter will." And now let's see what God wants. So it wasn't just words, it was an experience. In Gaden, you have the fruit. The fruit has the whole geschmack. The fruit brings out the seed. You want to see a seed, look at the fruit, don't look at the seed. If you use a microscope, you could look at the seed. If you don't use a microscope, look at the fruit. Somebody's going to say, I want to show you, if somebody comes to this world, let me show you what a tree is. You show them a seed of an apple, garbage. That's true. The seed. Yeah. The fruit is what you show off, right? You don't show off the seed. You don't serve for the Sheva Brachas, all the seeds. You show off the fruit. That's schar mitzvah. But what's schar mitzvah? It's mitzvah. Schar mitzvah is not something else. It's mitzvah. It's experiencing the mitzvah. It's seeing the full impact of the mitzvah. You want to see the seed, look at the fruit, but it's all the seed. The fruit is there's nothing in the fruit that wasn't in the seed. And on the fruit on its own can't do anything for you. We like the fruit because that's what nourishes us. The seed doesn't nourish us. But everything in the fruit comes from the seed. And that's what Olam Haba means. Olam Haba is not a different world. Olam Haba is just seeing the energy. That's it. Yitzchak had open eyes. So when Esav walked in here, and he saw the Gehenna now. When Esav walks in, we honor him at the dinner. Shishi. My point is, I don't mean that literally. I mean, you understand what I'm saying, tongue in cheek. I don't necessarily see the Gehenna in the Gan Eden. Yitzchak saw. I told you once a Maisa, there was a Yid, his name was Shimon. By Chabad, in Chassidim, they called him Shimon HaKofer. He was a German Jew. He was a big maskil. He was very, very enlightened man, scholar. He was a linguist. He was an expert in language. He came to Vilna with one agenda. He wanted to he wanted to change the whole culture, and he was successful because he came in as a teacher who's going to teach the children dikduk. It's a whole story. He went to the Vilna Gaon. He was a very, very impressive person, and he wrote books on dikduk and language, and the Vilna Gaon held very much from wisdom and language. He was a big supporter of it. And he decided to come to the Alter Rebbe, this Shimon HaKofer. And he would lie. He lied. He lied that he came from here and he was a Malamed. He had a whole Ma'aseh, and he was successful in what he did. So they say he came into the Alter Rebbe on Yechidus. The Alter Rebbe says, where are you from? He says he's from a place called Zamut. What do? I'm a teacher. What's your focus? I want to teach children dikduk. And he wanted Alter Rebbe to help him he wanted to infiltrate his way into the world of the Chassidim. So Alter Rebbe says to him, you're a teacher, so let me ask you a question. It says in Parshas Toldos that when Esav came in with the food, and Yitzchak said, I already ate. So Vayecharad Yitzchak charad gedola ad ma'od. Yitzchak started to tremble violently. And he said, Mi Eifoi, who did this? Who trapped, who hunted the food and already brought me, and I blessed him already, Gam Baruchi, and that's when Esav broke down sobbing. So Rashi says, why Vayecharad Yitzchak charad gedola ad ma'od? Yeah. So one pshat over there is literally because, he was deceived. Then Rashi brings another vart, that he saw Gehenna. When Esav came in, he saw Gehenna psuchim mitachtav. He saw the Gehenna under him. That's what. So the Alter Rebbe asked Shimon HaKofer, how do you teach the children? So he says, I don't teach the second pshat. He says, why not? He said, first of all, it doesn't make sense. He saw Gehenna under him. What? He came in with fire? Gehenna is fire. So what, Esav came in and there was a fire around him, there was a fire under him, there was a hole. What does it mean? You're driving the kids crazy. Besides the fact it's going to scare them, besides the fact it's incomprehensible. I teach literally. So the Rebbe says, how did Chazal know that the Gehenim came in? How did they know it? It actually brings it from the man. How did they know it? It doesn't say in the pasuk. So he said he doesn't know. So the Rebbe said like this, I'll tell you the pshat. He had 2 candles burning, even during the day, and he brought the 2 candles, and he looked them in the eyes, and he said, Esav came in, and he said, Anoichi Esav b'chorecha. I'm Esav your b'chor. But the truth is, he sold his birthright to Yaakov. So he wasn't the b'chor. So he was lying. And when somebody lies, the Gehenim opens up under him. And he said, when somebody comes from Vilna and he says he's coming from Jamut, when somebody says he's a teacher of children, but really his kavanah is to uproot children from Emunah, when somebody says that he's interested in dikduk, but his whole interest is to change the whole chinuch, so he should know that when he walks into the room, the Gehenim comes in with him. Shimon HaKofer, he ran out of the room. Adkan. What's the pshat? The Gehenim is not what you have to be afraid of. It's the law you got to be afraid of. The Gehenim is just exposing the lie. We're not sensitive in this world, so I could lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. But that's, Gehenim is schar mitzvah mitzvah. Schar aveira aveira. It's just the fruit that reveals what's in the seed. You can look at the seed, you don't see anything. It's numb, it's emaciated, it's dead. It's not dead, it's alive. You just don't see it. The fruit brings it out. So we don't, Gan Eden doesn't start after life, it's right now. You choose if you're living in Gan Eden, you choose if you're living in Gehenim. It's just the revelation and the exposure of your state of mind. There's a person who walks around with Gehenim around him. There was a Yid, that's an interesting Maisa. It's a very powerful story. I was once standing in front of 770. It was late. Last year, the Rebbe would go to the oil of his father-in-law, the Rebbe Ayatz, and he would stay there a whole day sometimes. And he would fast. He would read all the letters there. He could stand there for 10 hours. He stood, he didn't sit, and he fasted that day. And he was already quite old. And one night I was waiting there for him to come back. It was late at night. It was a summer day and it was very late at night. And it was very delayed. I wanted to daven mincha, might have. So I was standing outside. There was a Yid standing there. There's an Oilam, his name was Reb Moshe Groner. His brother was Rabbi Label Groner, who was one of the Rebbe's secretaries. His name was Moshe Groner. So we're standing there. So I said, Reb Moshe, to tell me a Maisa. He was there for many years. So tell me a story. So he told me that there was a Yid. His name was Reb Moshe Leib Rothstein. Reb Moshe Leib Rothstein was a secretary of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Ayatz, and then later of the Rebbe. They called him Reb Moshe Leib. He passed away without children in the 1960s, I think 68, 67. So he told me that Moshe Leib Rothstein, when he was a bacher, when he was young, asked him once, gave him an envelope, and asked him to take it to Manhattan and go give it to somebody. He worked in the Rebbe's secretariat. So he said, I went. I came back, I told him that I did it. So he took out money to pay me. I don't know if it was a dime or a quarter. This is like the early 1950s or the late 40s. So I told him, I'm not going to take money from you. I did a mitzvah. I'm not taking money. So he says, I want to pay you. So he says, if you want to pay me, tell me a story. So he says, Moshe Leib Rothstein said, okay, I'll tell you a story that nobody knows. So Moshe Groner told us to me what he heard from him. He says, once the Rebbe Ayatz, the previous Rebbe, went to Marienbad. You know where Marienbad is? Marienbad is a place where they would go there were baths, spas. A lot of people would go there. It's in Czechoslovakia. Before the war, they would go there because it was a very healthy place. The climate was very good, and there were a lot of baths that were very healthy. And the previous Rebbe, he suffered from MS, multiple sclerosis. So in the 1930s, he went there. And a lot of other people would go there, Marienbad. There's pictures from before the war. There were hotels. It was a big kibbutz of a lot of Jews and also Gedolei Yisrael. One time when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was there, the Rebbe Ayatz, the Minchas Elazar, the Munkacher Rebbe was also there. Munkacher Rebbe passed away in 1933, so this was before. Reb Chaim Elazar Shapiro, from Munkacher, the Minchas Aluzah. He passed away Sivan, Tafresh Tzaddik Gimel, I think, Beis Sivan, 1933, so this was before. One morning, the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, came home from davening. I guess he davened in shul there. And he came home, his mother was with him. Her name was Rebbetzin Stern Sarah, the wife of the Rebbe Rashab. So they were sitting and eating something, breakfast. So he tells his mother that he saw that the Munkacher is here. The Lubavitcher Rebbe and the Munkacher were very close. Very close. They had a very close relationship. So he says, the Munkacher is the Minchas Elazar. So his mother says, Ich wollte ihm sehr gewollt begegnen. I would love to meet him. But the Minchas Elazar was very, very frum, and he wouldn't meet women. So it wasn't shaykh. So her son, the Rebbe Rayatz, says, I made up with him to take a stroll, to take a walk 3 o'clock today. So kannst du rausgehen und stehen, and you'll see him. You'll see him. We're going to take a walk. So she says, good, that's what I want. I wanted to see him. He had a hadras upon him, the Munkacher. There's some pictures. There's even a video of him. You ever saw the video? Huh? You ever saw the video? By his daughter's wedding, they had the television crew. It's from the 1920s. So they came to him, or early 30s, they said, what's your message for American Jews? You ever saw it? Amerikaner Yidden, hit Shabbos, hit Shabbos. So Rebbetzin Stern Sarah, she told his mother, stand there on the side. So she stood behind a tree just to see him. And her son, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Munkacher were walking. Reb Moshe Leib Rothstein was a secretary by the Rayatz, so he accompanied him, so he was walking behind. That's how he knew the story. So he says, as they're walking, the Munkacher turns to the Rayatz near a tree, and he says, Lubavitcher Rebbe, ich schmeck da Gaden. Ich schmeck Gaden. I smell the odor of Gaden here. Schmeckt was ich schmeck? You smell what is it? Was is das? He says, this is the mama. This is my mother. She was behind the tree. That's what Moshe Leib said. The point is, the reich of Gan Eden is everywhere, or the opposite. The question is what I see, what I don't see. So Gan Eden, that's where the Torah comes out. And Gan Eden is tainug, nenim is ivashchina. That's where the bliss of Torah comes out. It's also not the koyach hatzamech. It's not ayin, it's yesh. Because it's Gan Eden. It's not ayin, it's not ein sof completely. Because to be ein sof, there wouldn't be the souls enjoying it. It's the way the koyach hatzamech, the intangible, creative power of the divine, comes out in a fruit. But it's all generated by what? By the seed germinating. So we have 3 stages. And that's the pshat. When the seed is put into the earth and experiences the bittul of the koyach hatzamech, it can produce the ziv hashchina, which is Gan Eden, but the atzmius is in the fruit. But the atzmius is in the seed, and the seed merges with the koyach hatzamech. And Alter Rebbe said, what's pshat? That's how you have to learn. If I say I only have Torah, I don't need anything else. You don't even have Torah. You have the levushim of Torah, you don't have Torah. If I say I only have a seed, what do I need? What do I need? Earth. I have a seed. You don't even have the seed. You don't know what the seed is infinite. The seed has infinite potential in it. You don't have the seed either. You think you have the seed. You have just you have the outer covering of the seed. I once heard from a Yid, his name was Yisrael Gordon. He passed away not long ago. So he told me that there was somebody once by a Fabrengen of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, and he came in and he said, Ich hab gekent ayetaten. I knew your father, the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he looked at him, he said, Ihr het gesehen mein Taten. You saw my father. You saw the seed. You can't mein Taten. Gesehen mein Taten. You understand? Like, you saw. You had a schus to see. It was gekent. You know, fine. So I learned through Shas. Okay, it's gewaldig. It's much better than doing other things. Much better than being on my phone all day and all night. Avada. It's gezen mein Taten, but then there's a kennen. So I have this seed. The Rebbe says when a person learns, it has to be with the bittel from the sea to the koich hatzamech in the earth. It gets covered. To be able to experience the chachmasai, the chachmas ein sof, it's a different approach emotionally, a different approach intellectually also. The moment there's an ego in learning, it's completely divorced from the whole thing. The moment it's like, I'm going to prove to you how smart I am, or my knowledge, or my scholarship, or I'm going to become great. It's completely like, you're completely deprived from the whole experience. The whole experience is Ein Sof. But even without ego, but even just the intellectual brilliance of it, without the Ein Sof of it, I just have the Lavush. That was the Nakuda. The seed must merge with the earth. And that's the Schar mitzvah of Gan Eden. The Nenim is Ivan Shchin is the Lakus of Torah. Yeah.
What's the earth in the mashal? Anava? What's the earth that turns the seed into the fruit?
The earth in the mashal is the source of everything. In Kabbalah it's called Malchus. Malchus is Eretz. It's the divine life force. It's the divine womb. It's the divine creative power which is responsible for the whole world. Shchinas Uzay. That's the earth. Mother Earth, we call it. Hakal hayamina offer. The mashpiyah, it's the generative, reproductive source. Gimel. Ukatei shedesachet gam kenim nafshei alakis. In order for this to be unified and integrated with a person's nefesh alakis, with my own soul, all this, hine hatfila kruya nefesh. This is what davening is. Tefillah is called soul. The famous Haftarah of Rosh Hashanah, Chana, tells Eli, right, he says, you're drunk. You're drunk. He says, no, I'm pouring out my soul before God. My soul. So tefillah is called nefesh, soul. Why is tefillah called nefesh? Because that's what tefillah is. As the expression is, Torah is Hashem speaking to you. And tefillah, davening, is you speaking to Hashem. Torah is not I. Torah is listening to what Hashem has to say. Tefillah is Hashem says, what do you have to say? The experience of tefillah is the soul. It's the best way to describe tefillah. It's the experience of me showing up. When you take tefillah, there's no me in tefillah. The whole idea of davening is bringing you into the relationship. That's what I have with tefillah. Tefillah is not about repeating like a parrot words. Torah is opening yourself up to the message of Torah. Tefillah is bringing your energy into it. Where am I in the process? So that's why tefillah is called nefesh. So tefillah is all about integration with the self. That's what davening is. It's like having a real intimate conversation where I am showing up into the relationship. Ve'eshpoich es nafshi lefnei Hashem. That's what it is. In that sense, Torah is higher, yeah. There's a mile in Torah, there's a mile in tefillah. You're right. Torah is about listening, tuning in. Tefillah is also listening, but it's listening to myself. But B'klois ha-nefesh mamash, b'mesidus nefesh, b'bittul b'metzias halav yizbarach, b'chinas achoisi haniska la'el. What's tefillah? Tefillah is going back to the achoisi with which the Maimah began. The concept of tefillah is to be able to open myself up from all the blockages. That's what tefillah really is. If you want to know what davening is when I wake up in the morning, I have to make a choice of what the day is going to look like. Either it's going to be a day with blockages or a day without blockages. Either it's going to be a day of pischili or a day of being closed. If I'm closed, it's going to be a miserable day because I'm going to need distractions a whole day. First, I'm going to be an hour and a half on my phone checking emails. Then I'm going to be checking all the clips. Then I have to go through all the news. Then I have to know, right? Mele Rabbi YY's clips, but it's not always my clips. And even my clips in the wrong time, it's a distraction, with all due respect. And then I go from one thing to another thing. So the whole avodah of davening is pischili achaisi, to be able to reveal what he spoke earlier in the beginning of the Maimer, right? What emes lamita is, what midas hatzadikim is. To go back to the truth of chelek elokam mimal, where you're completely aligned. Remember, the neshama is batel with metzias, and even after it comes down and it becomes a nivra and it goes into the guf, it's going back to that space, which is always there. It's embedded in the person. The question is how much access I have with it. So you need pischili, because if my soul is covered over by fears and anxieties and stresses and being overwhelmed and anger and frustration and cravings and addictions, it's all blocked. So that's the avodah of pischili. That's what he says. That's what davening is. That's what's nafshi. It's all about my soul. Davening is not tuning into somebody else, tuning into something. Davening is opening myself up to myself. That's why you need to learn how to daven. They say when the Alter Rebbe wanted to go to a Rebbe, so he said he had two choices, right? You ever heard? To go to Vilna and to go to Mizrich. In Vilna was the Vilna Gaon. And he wanted to go there. He heard great things. In Mizrich was the Mizrich Magid. So the Alter Rebbe said, that in Vilna you learn how to learn. In Mizrich you learn how to daven. Lernen kenich shen abissel. Daven kenich bechlal nisht. So I'm going to go to Mizrich. Learning, I already know a little bit how to learn. Davening, I bechal don't know how to daven. So he went to Mizrich. That changed history, obviously. What do you have to learn how to daven? Open a siddur and daven. That's not davening. Davening is the experience, right, of imbuing, of infusing the infinite oneness into my life, to live with it. That's a very, very profound avodah. It's the profoundest avodah. Here in this Maimer, we're learning that really, it's going to see in a moment, how by going to Mizrich, he also went to Vilna. Okay, we'll see in a moment, that the two really become one. So the davening is ve'eshpech es nafshi lifnei Hashem, to arouse the love and tefillah from the depth of the heart. Beklois hanefesh mamar. Beklois hanefesh mamar means that the soul completely is in a state of oneness. What he calls him is serious nefesh and bittul b'metzias. Bittul metzias means I celebrate going out of metzias. How do you celebrate going out of metzias? Because metzias is a survival mechanism. It's ego. Just like my anxiety and my fear and all my other stuff. It's a way of remaining separate. The natural state of the soul is ayin. I don't need metzias. Like I gave you the mashal of a fish in water. Don't take me out of the water. Don't take pictures of me. Right? Somebody who's sensitive to this, one of the worst punishments can be getting attention. Why? You're separating me. I spoke yesterday to a Jew. I was very moved by it. He's a PhD in psychology, and he's a professor, and he created an institution for therapists, a very, very successful and special person. And he told me that he was at this conference, and he was being put on a pedestal because of his academia. People get very impressed by academics. So they eulogized him, and they extolled his virtues, Achmei Hashamayim, and completely like he's, from a different world. And he said that somebody noticed that a tear came down his cheek. So the person asked him, did we just insult you? Why are you crying? So he said, I'll tell you the truth. My greatest yearning in life is to be able to have a human experience together with other humans. And you just took me away from that. You just me on a pedestal. I can't talk to anybody. I can't connect to anybody. I can't be normal with anybody. So yeah, I'm crying. It's a person is a healthy, a person is in touch with himself. When I'm not in touch with that, then I need more. So bittul metzias means, and it goes to much more subtle levels. So that's where davening is. That bittul metzias becomes, that's who you are. So it's not anymore an ego game or confrontational or even insecurity. Even insecurity is the biggest ego. What's insecurity? Insecurity means I'm insecure. There's also a thing, the neshama is not insecure. You know why? Because the neshama is not I. It's Ein Sof. So what are you insecure? I am arrogant and I am insecure are two sides of separateness. One is I'm arrogant, and one is I'm nobody. Ich bin ashmata. But it's the same nekuda. So that's what he says with tefillah. That's a chaysi. She inyan mesidus nefesh a bittul anal nikve b'meiche v'libe b'shas hatfila shehi b'chinas chachmila. So this mesidus nefesh and bittul becomes entrenched in a person's mind and heart during davening, and that's what chachmila is. What's chachmila? Chachmila is the source. It's the genetic. It's the source of creation. Kulam b'chachma sisa. Chachma is the code, the divine code from which everything comes. Kulam b'chachma sisa. Connecting to chachmila means going back to the source of creation. Going back to the own source, to the cosmic source, to your core. And in that space, you're an extension of infinity, you're an extension of Ein Sof. V'lachein, כשלומד אחר כך על דרך הנ"ל, שיהי לימודי בוטל לגבי חכמי עולם מלובשת בתורה סוי, הרי מסייחד דמייחד אור תורה סוי באור נפש הלקיס. Now, afterwards, after you go through this process of davening achaisi, now when you learn, now you could learn in the way we described, that the limud, the seed, is bottled to the chachmei law, which is manifested in the seed in the Torah. So now what happens is the light of the Torah and the light of your soul merge into one. Because the soul surrendered to the earth, and the Torah surrendered to the earth. So they all meet in the Kayach HaTzemech. They all meet in Chachmei Law. That's why it says in Shulchan Aruch that the time for learning is right after davening. The Gemara says in Brachas, Mi Beis HaKnesses, Le Beis HaMedrash, and then Hanig Ben Minig Derech Eretz. Then you go to the office. Then you go start farming, or whatever the work is. Why? She says, because then the learning is a different type of learning. In other words, to really learn Torah, it has to be after davening. I don't mean here after davening in terms of time. It means after the experience of davening. We're talking here the davening that he's talking in this moment. I don't mean just, I joined a minyan. What's davening? Davening is, if I can't find the bittul in me, I won't be able to find the bittul in Torah. I'll hold on to the chitzonius of Torah, to the external part of Torah. In davening, the person takes their seat, so to speak, and puts it into the Kayach HaTzemech. In other words, I align myself with the source. That's what Mesidus Nefesh is, that's what Achaisi is, that's what Bittul B'Metzias is, that's what Ava is. I celebrate life as a channel for the divine without any need for separateness. So now when I take the seed of Torah, I can see in it the DNA, I can see in it the Elikus. I can't see in you what I don't see in myself. There's no such a thing. I see this again and again and again in therapists. The success of a therapist has little to do with how much he knows. It has all to do with how worked out he is as a person. Because all of our stuff we put on other people. So if your trauma triggers my trauma, I'm going to mess you up. Not because I want, I may be a nice guy. I have no choice. It's only when I have control of my stuff, then I know how to separate, I know boundaries. It's a very deep thing. They don't talk about it so much, but this is more important than everything else. I'm not even talking about a person who's vicious or malicious, chas v'shalom, and really sick. Even not. The point is, we project what we are. Once you daven, now you could learn in the same way. Just like when I get up to davening, I could also look at myself and say, I'm just a surviving animal with an ego, a big one or a small one, trying to survive. And therefore you're triggering me, and you're triggering me, and you're triggering me, and now I need this, and now I need this, and I'm running from one thing to another. Or davening is, no. I go into the pnimiyas, and you find your pnimiyas, who you really are, and what you really want, and who you really, and what the chelik al means, and you surrender to that completely. So now when you start learning Ashtikl Gemara after davening, it's a different Gemara. You'll see the pnimiyas. You're not just going to have the seed. The seed will connect with Chachmei Law. So now your soul and the Oid HaTorah, which is Chachma, and your soul, which is one with Chachma, now they can merge. So that's why davening is learning is after davening. Tfilasi smucha limitasi, that one. No, that was meditation. That was part of davening. That was meditation. In fact, it says in Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Tefillah, in Siman Tzadik Ches, that they would hayumagiyim lispashtus hagashmius karev l'mailas hanavua. They would be divested from their embodiment. They would reach close to a state of prophecy. And this is how the Mishnah describes Chassidim HaRishonim, every day, 9 hours. People think meditation is a Pesach from the last few years from the Far East. And now some people here got into it. When you open up a Mishnah and Brachas, 9 hours a day. 3 hours for Shachris, 3 hours for Mincha, 3 hours for Ma'ariv. You know what it means? And it's meditation. It's not talking, it's not shiurim, it's not lectures. It's all meditation. But they would go reach a space of prophecy. What does it mean reach a state of... And this is a halach in Shulchan Aruch, by the way. That's how you have to prepare for davening. It's a halach in Shulchan Aruch, in the regular Shulchan Aruch, Mishnah Brura too. What's the idea? What do you mean? What does it mean? Everyone has prophecy. We look at prophecy, some weird thing. What's prophecy? Prophecy means that your antennas are clean. Everybody has antennas. The soul is full of antennas. My antennas are clean. You hear stuff. First of all, you start hearing yourself. That's what it means. But to clean those antennas is very, very deep, because there's so much. If there's no safety, if there's no trust, if there's no security, if my relationships are wounded, I can't even begin this process, right? Self-awareness is the key for everything. Yeah, I start hearing, first of all, static, and you start hearing other messages. I once heard the speaker get up to speak and was very noisy. So he says, I'm hearing voices and I'm not a prophet. So the limud haTorah after davening, it's a different experience, because you're in touch with the divine vibrations in your soul. So the learning is a different learning. There's an edelkeit there. There's an elikus that you could see in every Tosfos, in every Rashi. It's a different experience. The Gaden goes into the earth. Once it's in the earth, it's a different seed. Psst, this is a seed. Das is Torah. Das is Ein Sof. The moment a person senses the infinity in Torah, they're not closing the book again. The reason so many of our teenagers are bored for 10 years is because they need to feel the infinity of it. They need to feel the bliss of it. They need to talk to the deepest part of their soul. There's no substitute for that. The moment you experience that, there's no going back. This is the pshat the Gemara says, Ashrei misha bolakan v'talmude biyadeh. Fortunate is the one who comes here. Here means olam haba, and his learning is in his hand. What's pshat? Pirush. Shabolik. It's a funny expression. It should say Ashrei mi, that he spent his life learning. Ashrei mi, who learned Torah. Ashrei mi, when he comes to olam haba, right? He has the schus of Torah. What's it? Ashrei comes here v'talmude biyadeh. So he says this is what it's saying. Pirush shabolikan nafshaya lekis they mesidus nefesh bittul anal v'talmude gamkein biyadeh al derech hanal. He came here. He actually had the courage to come here. Sometimes I don't have the courage. Ashrei misha balakan. It's not a physical, geographical thing. It's a state of mind. Did you ever have the courage to step in to the bliss of Ein Sof, which is bittul? And then something else happened. V'talmude biyadeh. The Talmud was biyadeh in the same way. What he did to himself also happened to the learning. So Ashrei Misha Bolakan, and who else came here? V'talmude biyadeh, in his hands he brought the Talmud also here. He put the seed into the earth as well, just like he put himself into that state of connection. So this is what planting is. So now we finished planting. The seed went into the earth. Now you're getting hungry. What's next? Avodas hatchina b'avodas Hashem. Then you have grinding. We have a seed. The seed grew. Gewaltig. We have a prairie. We have grain. But when you have a preda, you don't have to grind. When you have grain, we're talking about bread, you have to grind it. What's grinding? You have a beautiful kernel. So you really crush it. You smash it up into pieces. Tiny little particles of flour, to the point that it's tiny little pieces. What is that in Avodah? So he says, leiv nishbar v'nitka. It says in Tehillim, Kapitel Nun Aleph, leiv nishbar v'nitka. Literally means a broken and crushed heart. Nitke, crushed. Pirish nitke meloshen dachu b'meducha. You know what this says about the man, right? The man. Dachu b'meducha. They crushed it in a meducha. A meducha in English is a, what's the word? A pestle? Yeah. So that's the keli in which they crushed the man. Dachu b'meducha. So leiv nishbar v'nitke, you'll see in Hebrew there's a word, a meduka. Meduka b'yisurim. It's broken into pieces. What's that? You take the grain of wheat and you grind it till it becomes a powder, mefarid, becomes like a crumb, dak, as thin as flour. By the Ketores it says they had herbs, 11 types of herbs, we say in the morning, right? And they had to grind it hadek. They had to crush it hadek. Hadek, heitiv, hadek. What does the word hadek mean? Hadek means to crush very meticulously and until it was grinded up into powder. That's what they burnt on the Mizbeach of the Ketores. When the Tehillim Kuf Yates, he wants to talk about learning, he says, my soul learned, Garsa. The Gemara always has an expression, Garsinon. What does Garsinon mean? You say the Girsas. So really it means learning. Garsa Nafshi, my soul learns. Garsinon, like Rashi will always say, Hachi Garsinon. What does it mean? This is how you have to read it. Why? Miloshin Reichayim Shel Grusais. The expression, a mill that crushes the barley. Because that's what real learning is. Real learning is taking something apart. You're given a kernel, you don't understand it. You have to take it apart. One of the most powerful things in learning is the dissecting. And the dissecting more and more and more. Hadek, heitiv, hadek. Until you have a full picture. Because as long as I don't dissect it, it's confusing. It's a cholent. A cholent is not learning. That's one of the mistakes people learn. Yeah, let me cover ground. No. It doesn't work. And they fool themselves, and it's not pleasurable. Everything has to be taken apart. Everything. There's a structure, there's a question, there's an answer, there's a build-up. Every premise should be challenged. Why? When you learn like that, then you can. So it's interesting, the word is garsinon. What's garsinon? Garsinon doesn't mean to learn, it means to crush. Because that's what learning is, and it's a very humbling process. It's really taking things apart. It's disintegration in order to rebuild it. If you don't disintegrate, you're building something false. Because you don't understand this. It's like a machine. Every piece is indispensable, right? You take it apart. So if I want to appreciate the machine, I can't say, "Oh, it's a nice machine." No, take it apart. That's what real learning is. Grus grechaim shel gruses garsinon garsanavsh. What is it in avodah? The same is true in a person. Until I'm not ready to take myself apart completely, I'll never learn who I am. But that's not easy. Who wants to be grinded? Who wants to be grinded? He said, but that's the avodah of tchina. Yeah. So it's not crushed to crush, like let me crush you. It's crushed like it's a very important idea. It's like when you crush the kernel. You're not trying to destroy the kernel. You're trying to excavate, reveal what the purpose of the kernel is. There's two types of crushing. One is you crush l'shem crushing. That's horrible. That's called abuse. Sometimes in a yeshiva or in a school or in a therapy office or in a shul, somebody will crush somebody else, or in a relationship just to crush them, just to teach them who's boss and make them feel horrible. That's called abuse. And we all know the results. Fathers who put down kids, and teachers who put down kids, and other people who by mistake or not by mistake put down and crush and crush and crush, and they say it's a very good thing he's humble. No, he's not humble, you're just an abuser. He's not humble, he's destroyed. We're not talking about that. That's why the mashal is so important. When you crush kernels, it's not because you hate the kernel. It's because you want to bake challah for Shabbos. You want the kernel. You want the potential of the kernel. It's very different. If I'm grinding because to reveal your potential, it's an act of love. If I'm grinding you because I have an axe to grind, pun intended, because I'm an angry man or I'm insecure, and if I put you down, I'll feel better about myself for 6 minutes, then I may be an emotional killer. You understand what I'm saying, everybody? It's very important. So grinding in Avodas Hashem is to reveal your full potential. Can I take myself fully apart? How many of us have the courage to really sit and allow somebody to take me apart? Do you even have such a person in your life besides your wife? Maybe that's why we get married. Why are you sighing? Was krijgst du? Because you're not grinded, you're crushed. It's a very big difference. From grinding, you can have the most beautiful cakes, the most beautiful challahs, the most delicious bread, which nourishes the world. From crushing, you have nothing left. So Tchina and Avodas Hashem is that ability to be able to be taken apart. It's called honesty, vulnerability, looking at everything. And let's face it, we sometimes cannot do this. We sometimes need a lot of help doing this. I would say in many cases, it's only the circumstances of life that force people into these situations. Nobody goes here voluntarily. Nobody goes here voluntarily. You don't go under a mill because you're having a nice day. You go under a mill because your marriage is challenging you, your children are challenging you, life is challenging you. But Alter Rebbe says, really, this is what Avodas Hashem is. That's what it's grinding. And that's what learning is. That's what learning is. And you'll see people who know how to do this, their learning is different. There's an honesty there. Right? You could see everything is accounted for. Don't fool yourself. Just like we fool ourselves in learning, we also fool ourselves in Avodas Hashem. It's the same thing. Because I'm not ready to look at every detail. Next. Let's go to the next piece of Gemara. Wo läufst du? This is Tchina. What's next? Now you have the flour, beautiful. You still don't have bread. Now you need a knead. What's knead? You got to bring in water. You take water, and when you put water, what happens in? Suddenly, all the particles of flour become one. There's a dough. It's a moedidika thing, right? You ever saw? You have flour, every particle is separate. Suddenly, you pour water, you start kneading, and what happens? It's an isa achas. And it's inseparable. After you make a dough, could you say, let me separate the water from the flour? Fa'falen, too late. They became one mitzias. Isa achas. Now it's not flour, it's a dough. Kemach is flour. Isa is not flour. Isa is a dough, a teig, which is flour and water together to the point that they're indistinguishable. From flour itself, you don't have bread. From water itself, you don't have bread. You mix the two, and it becomes one. From separateness, on the American dollar, it says "e pluburis unam." You know what that means? You ever read the dollar? You're never bored? Before people had telephones, they used to read things. So in Latin, it means from many, one. So now you just learned what it says on the dollar. It's interesting. From many, one. The vision of America was to make from many, one. That's what water does. You go into the flour, and from many particles, it became one. The Rebbe says that's the next step. How do you know the grinding was good grinding? Afterwards, you're going to become one. When you crushed, you just crushed. When you grind it into flour, now it's an invitation, bring in water, and bring it all together. What does this mean in a person's life? So he says, it's remaining in a place of connectivity, not separation. Particles of flour, I am I, you are you, we're separate. Water means I always remain in a place of attachment. You always keep your heart open. I would describe this to live with an open heart that is connected. It's hard because there's a lot of reasons to close down and go into separation, go into isolation. We become cynical, we become bitter, we become afraid. So if I can go into my cocoon and retreat into my cocoon and hide and just peek out, sometimes it's much easier. So putting in the water, right? He uses here the word, what's the word he uses here? Lias mashuch acher of kamayim. We say in the tefillas of Geshem or Tal, right? Schor of nimshach acharecha kamayim. Water is a connecting agent. You pour the water into the flour, it connects all the pieces. It means in life, I always want to be in a place of connection, always attachment. First of all, it's attachment with yourself, all your parts. Automatically, it's attachment with other people. And it all comes from your attachment with Hashem. That's where it starts. So it means I'm not afraid of any part of me because there's mayim. I could bring in all the parts. I don't want to be in a place of separateness. So after the grinding, right, there's dissection. Now there's connection. Now that you have all the parts and you're opening yourself up to all the parts, now I want to bring them all together. And that's what the love means. I want to be in a place of dvekas, a place of always connectivity and alignment, not separation, not fragmentation, not disintegration. That's what lisha is. That's what kneading is. And by the way, the mitzvah of challah is only after it becomes a dough. Only after it becomes a dough is there a mitzvah of challah. Ubchinas hafiyah, now there's baking. Okay, you brought the water. Now we need the fire. Kneading is water. Baking is fire. You can't bake with water. You have to bake with fire. You put it in an oven or you put it on a grill. Now you need the fire. So now you have baking. What's b'chinas hafiyah? So he explains two things. Hukinyan mashakasav, the pasuk says, it's the parsha of Menachos. The parsha of Menachos, Vayikra Tzav. It says as follows. V'chisakriv karben mincha mafei tanur. When you're makriv, when you bring close a karben mincha, a meal offering, mafei tanur, baked in the oven. Uksiv, but it says sakriv below yud. It should have said sakriv with a yud. Sof, kuf, reish, yud, vez. V'chisakriv. It says without a yud. And whenever it says something in a pasuk, even if we read it sakriv, yesh eim lemesoidus. You know what yesh eim lemesoidus means? It's an expression in Shas many times. Mesechtas yesh eim lemesoidus means there is a mother for the way it's written. Machlokes Gemara, yesh eim lemesoidus, yesh eim lemikra. It's a very interesting machlokes. What's more important? Who's the mother? The way we pronounce the word or the way the word is written? This is pronounced, the way we read Chumash, v'chi sakriv, but it's written without a yud. So how can you read it? V'chi sikrav, when you get close. Not v'chi sakriv, when you're going to bring some. V'chi sikrav, when you get close. The Rebbe says, yesh eim l'mesoidus, the primary is the way it's written. That's why it's written without a vav, so you should be able to read it that way. The Gemara has a similar thing, besukas, besukas, besukas. It says sukas without a vav. So from here you learn how many walls a sukkah has to have. Because yesh eim lemesoidus. So the Alter Rebbe says you could read it not v'chi sakriv, but v'chi sikrav. When you want to get close, when you want to be close, what happens? Then you have to be a mafei tanur. Then you need to be baked in the oven. What does it mean you have to be baked? Like the pasuk says, and here he takes a pasuk from Bechukoisai next week, which is part of the Teichecha. So in the next week, there's a Maimon Alter Rebbe says that the Teichecha at the surface looks all negative, but on a deeper level, it's really a profound blessing. So he says, what does it say there? Va'afu eser noshim lachmechem betanur echad. 10 women are going to bake their bread in one oven. Usually it's understood as a curse. 10 women have to use one oven. Rachmana litzlan. It means they don't have wood. They don't have enough ovens. They don't have enough bread. So you have 10 women gathering in one little oven, fighting over a piece of bread. The Rebbe says that's on one level. But on a deeper level, if you take the seed and you put it into the earth, then you megala the ein sof of Torah. What's pshat pirush? Listen to this. Shia oirer belibay rispei sha'ava machmas b'chinas echad. Every Jew is called a woman. Va'afu eser nashim lachmechem. All the 10 koiches of every Jew bake the Torah and the bread. What makes the baking? Echad. It's the sense of achdus, it's the experience of achdus Hashem that makes a fire. Va'afu eser nashim lachmechem betanur. What creates the fire, the baking of the bread, which is Torah? It's from the echad. We get baked in life. We fire ourselves up in life when we experience echad. When you experience tanur echad, the echad creates the baking. That's pshat. You want to get close. V'chisikrav ma'afei tanur. Dahainu migdolos ishamalach malcham lochem hakadosh baruch hamamal kalalman v'seiv kalalman v'kula kamei kalei chashav mamish asher al kein tislahid v'tislayiv nafshe listakala b'yikara demalka v'tisbatel koyech hanefesh mimuhusa v'atzmusa ba'ava aza v'yiseda me'avas Hashem l'dovka be'belvad l'davis nafshe atzmeya shebchines mayim kanal. What does this mean? When a person can experience the infinity of Hashem who fills all the worlds, who transcends all the worlds, and kula kamei kalei chashav mamash, everything in his presence doesn't occupy any outside existence. In other words, everything at its core is pure infinite oneness. What that does is, the experience of it, it's a flackert of the neshama. It fires up the soul. To sly it means it fires up the soul to gaze at the glory of the King. It's almost like you're gazing at this mesmerizing picture and you can't take your eyes off. You know, you gaze at a person or at a scene in nature. So listakolabi yikara de malka. It's like breathtaking. You can't catch your breath sometimes. You know, you ever learn a mimer and in the middle it's like listakolabi yikara de malka. It's like hard to catch your breath. Like wow, how grateful I am for this experience. It takes away your breath. And he says the koyach hanefesh is bottled from muhusa v'atzmusa because of an intense love. It's like there's a complete surrender of holding on to my separate space. The very essence is surrendered because there's such a powerful love here. It's deeper than the love where I want to connect to you because my soul is thirsty. That's the love of water. There's a love of water and there's a love of fire. That's the difference of kneading and baking. Kneading is bringing in the water. Baking is bringing in the fire. What's the difference? Fire and water physically are opposites. Mayim hu teva mechaber u'mitzaref. Ve'esh hu beteva mefarer u'mafred. How you say this? You understand? Mayim is a connecting agent. Fire is a disintegrating agent. Water brings the particles of flour together. Water makes things stick. Fire crumbles things. Right? You put a chair into the fire, a table into the fire, boom. Fire's job is to separate everything. Everything to get separated. Mayim's job is to be mechaber, mitzaref. When you want to also mold iron or mold metals. Eish is mefared umafrid. It separates the elements. Kenoida, shebe'eish mispardim kol ha'yisodos. You put something in fire, it breaks something down to the skeleton level. All the elements. Yisod hamayim yotzei ba'oshan. The element of water goes out in the smoke. The element of fire goes out in the fire. The element of ruach goes out in the air. And the element of earth becomes scattered ashes. It doesn't even remain earth. Even the earth is scattered around. It doesn't remain cohesive anymore. So all the yisodos, eish, ruach, mayim, afar, disintegrate in the fire. The eish goes into the eish, the ruach goes into the ruach, the mayim goes into the smoke, and the afar becomes ashes and it's scattered. That's what eish does. It breaks everything apart. So there's nothing left of it. That's why Avraham Avinu says, "Vanoichi afer ve'efer." So he says like this: "Kach ha'ava b'chinas rispe eish hi b'china hafchis b'chinas ha'ava shel b'chinas mayim." Love of fire is opposite of love of water. Love of water is shehila dafka boy. The love of water is an agent of connection. Let's be close. I want to connect. I want me to be connected to you, to remain close. The love of fire actually, it separates, it breaks apart. The koiches hanefesh get separated from their essence. So what happens? It's here that the soul pours itself out to go into the bosom of its Father, into the light of Ein Sof Mamash. Ava, you can only have Eish after you have Mayim. Ava is very much, I want to be connected to you. It's like in a relationship. We want to be close. I retain my identity, and because I cherish you, you enrich my identity. Let's be close. Let's talk. Let's hang out. Let's be here for each other. That's mayim. We connect. So it takes the flour and brings the particles together. Eish is something already much. Eish is it's intense. It's so intense that I completely lose myself in the relationship. You can't start with Eish because it's very dangerous. You understand, right? Because when you lose yourself in a relationship before you find yourself in a relationship, you know what happens, right? There's nobody left. There's nobody left. You first have to find yourself in a relationship, always. Once you really find yourself in a relationship, now you can lose yourself in the relationship. But there's something about fire, yeah, there's nothing left. You're right, there's nothing left. It takes everything apart. The nefesh itself is completely consumed in the Ein Sof. That's real passion. Real passion is that there's no separateness left. Not because I'm connected, the very I is subsumed in the flame. The Baal Shem Tov once said, it says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem alekecha eish oichlehu. Hashem is a burning fire. What does that mean? That's the expression. Hashem alekecha eish oichlehu. He is a fire that eats up. Consumes. So it doesn't usually trigger a positive feeling, you know. You'll say, this father he's a fire who consumes. Okay, I'm staying away. Like a raging fire. The Baal Shem Tov said a moide de kevort. He said elikus is fire. With fire, you have a choice. Either you stay away or you get consumed completely. It's not like water. Water, I could put my feet into the beach and enjoy. You could put your hands in, you can go to the mikveh halfway, you could swim. If I don't want to get wet, you take off your shoes and your socks and you put your foot into the water. You all know that experience. And you enjoy it. Or you could just sit by the beach right there and the waves wash against you and it's good. With fire, I'm going to put my hands into the fire to get a little warm. Either you stay away and watch the fire. Once you put your finger in, the Baal Shem Tov says you have to be ready to be consumed. So he says it's all or nothing, yeah. Now take this in the right way. He says with a lakus, yeah. Either you stay distant or it's complete. In other words, if it's real, if it's Ein Sof, it's everything. If it's not, fine, stay away. That's the vart. Ava Keish is different than Ava Kamayim. Ava Kamayim is we connect, which is incredible. It's dveikus, it's not pirud. Ava Keish is it's overwhelming. Yes, it's overwhelming. But not in an abusive way, chas v'shalom. That's why the Eish has to come after the Mayim. It's the greatest privilege. I don't want anything to say separate. I want every last koyach to be consumed in the fire. It separates, it breaks down all the yesodis, so there's nothing left besides the fire. Because fire needs to be fueled. There's no fire without it. By breaking it up, there's nothing left besides the fire. That's a different type of ava. When a Jew experiences Ein Sof, this becomes the ava. After the mayim, this becomes the ava. It's a different type of passion. I can't get enough of it. Fakert, any separateness outside of the fire is something that's undermining me. I don't want it. No, it's the most positive consumption there is. You're not being consumed by a tyrant or a dictator. It's not Putin. It's not Raisi. Lahavdil, you're talking about Ein Sof. Don't compare. Huh? You're talking about Achoisi, Rayasi, yeah. You're right, this is not a mind thing. This has nothing to do with the mind. The mind here you could send to Australia. Well, somebody may be listening in Australia. You could send to Antarctica. The mind can't stop chicken. This is not a mind thing. This is all experiential. That's why if we don't have a regulated nervous system, we can't relate to any of this because our bodies have to be safe. This comes with full trust. If I'm not in a very calm space, I can't even begin to know what he's talking about. It's a mind game. It's a nice mind game. It's nice. It's good. But it's like the seed without putting it in the earth. Learning this mimer without experience is like a seed without putting it in the earth. It's just the chitzonius. It's all about an experience. It's very experiential. Think about a wife or a husband or a best friend. If you're not safe, you can't even begin to experience love. I'm busy defending myself against you. You're busy defending yourself against me. We're busy figuring out why you're wrong and how I could score points and how I could show you that you're ridiculous. If we do it with our spouse, we're doing it with God too. Trust me. I'm in a defense. I'm in a place of defense. This can only come from a place of real calmness, safety. If I'm hyper vigilant and I'm afraid that you're going to eat me up any second, how can I even begin to experience this? Yeah, it's all vulnerable. There's no partition. You're completely surrender. How could you completely surrender in such a way if there's no full trust? You can't. And for good reason you can't. This is full surrender, which comes with tremendous love. It's all about love. Like he says, Ava Aza v'yisera me Avas Hashem l'davka. It's not the Ava to connect. It's the Ava to seize. It's the Ava to be completely consumed. The fire is so deep. Just I want to gaze at the Yikara de Malka. So that's what it means to bake. It's the Ava like fire. But here he adds one more thing about baking. There's one more thing about baking. What is this? And as we'll see, the first thing is dependent on the second thing. It says, it's now everything here is gili alakus, but every line is another gili. Here's something unique. It kept me begeben a chumash. This is the story of Yosef and his brothers. So what happens is, Abloya chumash. Vayimar Yosef rushed. Ki nichmeru rachamav el echav. Nein, Abloya chumash. On the left. Ayeshakayach. A großen Dank. I'm sorry for the tircha. Yosef meets his brothers and he makes a condition with them. If they want to come back for grain, they have to bring Binyamin, right? The baby brother. They don't want to. Yaakov doesn't want to. At the end, they have no choice. They're hungry. They bring Binyamin. He meets Binyamin for the first time. Remember, he hasn't seen Binyamin in 22 years. And Binyamin is his only whole brother because all the other brothers are half brothers. So the lashon of the Torah is, when they introduce Binyamin, he says, wow, this is Binyamin? Yeah. So remember, he's meeting his baby brother, the only son from Rachel, after 2 decades. Vayimar Yosef ki nichmeru rachamav al achiv. Vayivakesh lifkois vayova yachadra vayev kshama. What does this mean? Yosef rushed. He rushed. Why? Because his compassion for his brother has been stirred. Nichmeru rachamav al achiv. He became so overwhelmed by emotion, so he had to rush. Why? Because he wanted to weep. And if he wouldn't have rushed, he would break down sobbing and he would ruin the whole plan, right? So he went to the room, private room, and he sobbed. And then it says, Vayirchatz panav, he washed his face, Vayetze, he went out, Vayisapik, he contained himself, Vayoymen, he said, Simu lachem, put bread. And they started to have their meal. It looks like it's a moving pasuk. He sees Binyamin, he rushes because he's overwhelmed from emotion. He goes to a private room and sobs, washes his face, and then the Torah says, comes out, Vayisapik. It's a eingehalten. He held himself back, and he said, put bread. What's pshat nichmeru rachamav al achiv? So Rashi says, nichmeru means nischamemu. His compassion was warmed up towards his brother. He felt this love, this rachamim. B'lashon Mishnah, hakoimer shel zeisim, which means the warm zeisim. B'lashon Arami, michmar psara. The flesh gets heated. It's called michmar. Nichmeru rachamav means his compassion became heated for his brother. Oireinu ketanu nichmaru. Our skin becomes as hot as an oven. Nischamamu v'nikmetu kmatim kmatim. He says when somebody gets sick or hungry, it becomes like shriveled, like shrinked from like if it was burnt, chas v'shalom. So the Alter Rebbe says, so Yosef's rachamim was burning, right? Burning, like in an oven. So there's a second element to baking. What happens? So listen to this. Pirush nichmeru rachamav miloshin michmer psara. The flesh is hot, like Rashi says. Shuloshin chamimos ki arachmanis umitzad hachamimos ki cham liba bekirba. All empathy comes with warmth, always a klal. Rachamim is mitzad chamimos ki cham liba bekirba. How do you know you're feeling compassion and empathy? There's always a warmth there. There's no judgment. When you're feeling distant and judgmental, there's no empathy. When there's rachmanis, it's always going to be, there's going to be a warmth. A physical warmth. Physical, you could feel it in the body. Cham liba bekirba. So he says, Kihine Yisrael nikru al Shem Yosef. Jewish people are called Yosef k'diksiv noye katzon Yosef. V'tzadich la'oire rachmim al p'chines binyamin. What happens here? Yosef's heart gets warmed towards Binyamin. He hasn't seen Binyamin. Shenikra ben oini. Why was Binyamin called Binyamin? When Binyamin was born, Rachel called him ben oini, the child of my pain. Oini means grief, like oinin, right? Oininus is grief, sadness. Ben oini, the child of my grief. So the Alter Rebbe says, every Jew is Yosef. Every Jew has a brother called Binyamin. It's called grief, pain. Ben oini, the child of my pain. We need to find empathy for Binyamin inside of us. What does this mean? To be able to be a master of accounting. Now he doesn't mean to go to school to become an accountant here. Mada de chushbana means a master of self-evaluation, accounting of the self. Lachshav al nafshay, to be able to feel, to think about a soul. Can you feel compassion for how beautiful your soul is and what it went through in life? That's what it means, Yosef's compassion for Binyamin. Nichmeru rachamav, he looked at his son as his brother. His brother lost his mother when he was born, Rachel. He grew up in a house where his other brother was kidnapped and lost or killed. He, of course, doesn't know what happened to Yosef. So he's feeling all this pain of Binyamin and his own pain of their separateness. It all comes at that moment. It all happens at that moment. So the Alter Rebbe says this is a description of the story of the soul. Every person is Yosef. Can you really feel the impact, the power of who you are, the greatness, the nitzut elikus? Can you have compassion for the nitzut elikus? You are divinity, you are infinity, but your soul has been through a lot. It went down, mata. Is that everybody is different. Everybody has to figure out what they know about themselves. Your life is not my life. Only you know you're Binyamin. Only you know you're Ben Oini. I don't. Sometimes even you don't know it. That's what happens. Yosef is simply feeling. He's feeling. He's not doing anything else at the moment. Nichmeru rachamav. There is this warm, and it's with warmth. It's not judgment. Judgment is not a warm feeling. Everybody knows that. Judgment is like you're a sick man. Compassion is warm. Somebody told me a line. I forgot. Oh. when your pain triggers my fear, it's pity. When your pain triggers my love, it's compassion. So there is an element here where Yosef he feels rachamim for his brother. So what does this mean? You're sensitive to the story of your soul and everything you went through in life. And this nitzutz halakus, whatever happened, the whole journey, whatever that means in your life, can you feel that? Vayavai hachadra vayev kshama. What Yosef does next is he goes into a room and he starts crying. Kediksiv b'mistadim tifke nafshi dahainu b'chadri libai. My soul cries in hiddenness. What does it mean in hiddenness? B'chadri libai means it goes into the inner chambers of my heart. It's a very hidden, it's a very innermost place where Yosef sobs. Umikol makayim vayisapek vayomer simu lechem. Then he comes out and he contains it over. He says, "Chevra, let's eat bread." What just happened? So Alter Rebbe says, "Simu lechem zu haTorah." Lechem, we just learned in Maimah, is Torah. Because a person operates in two spaces. The heart vacillates. There's joy in one side, and there's grief on the other side. He cries in his room. In other words, in this cheder of my heart, I cry. I feel the grief. There's another cheder of my heart where I say, it's time to eat. It's time to learn. What's this idea? This idea is the baking. What's the baking? We're talking about baking. Baking is fire, warmth. You can't bake without warmth. That's midas harachama. So this is the experience of empathy and compassion for your story, for your soul. The soul is pure divine. And it goes through a whole experience. Can you feel pain for Binyamin, Ben Oini? Your pain and his pain and the separation. Everyone having empathy for the nitzutz halakus inside of him. And that triggers naturally very deep tears. But sometimes a person can just remain there. I just remain with grief and pain and tears of the tragedy. I just remain in that place. Yosef comes out to his brothers and says, Simu lechem. Bring out the bread, bring out the Torah. What's Torah? So he says, there's a part of me that feels all the pain. And then there's another part of me and says, but right now I could connect. Right now I could become attached. Right now I can soothe my soul. Right now I can heal my soul. Empathy and compassion doesn't cancel out the fact that right now I could connect. On the contrary, when I feel the empathy, now my connection is so much more precious. It's so much more valuable. So if Torah gives me an opportunity to emancipate my soul, that's what I want to do. And it doesn't take away from the fact that there is deep pain for all of the experiences, including regret, including remorse, including 22 years of very, very profound challenges for all of us. Yosef suffered, Binyamin suffered, and that's also true. And that part of the heart remains. Vayev kshama, over there in that cheder, b'mistarim tifke nafshi. But his life doesn't become a festival of tears. You know, sometimes people are afraid if I have too much empathy and compassion, I'm going to get lost in emotion, I won't be able to function. It's the other way around. By Yosef paying tribute to the pain, he can truly appreciate the bread. By paying tribute to this pain, right, he can truly celebrate the Torah. Because he has that empathy. We're afraid that if we allow people to feel, they're going to become zombies, they're going to become robots, they're going to become narcissistic, they're going to become codependent people, they're going to sit in the therapist's office, ad bias goyal tzedek, and after tchiyas hamesim, and their bank accounts will be depleted. So therefore, if I shut down emotion, I don't have to have rachmi. Yeah, Binyamin, grow up, Binyamin, grow up. Next. Look at the future. What happens then is the lechem, the bread, is an escape. It's not a relationship. Only when you feel the pain can the bread become a relationship. You understand the difference? Torah can become an escape, and Torah can become a relationship. If I feel the empathy, it becomes the relationship. Wow, I'm grateful to it. If not, it's just a way of numbing and crushing and running away and repressing. So the Alter Rebbe says that's what bakes the Torah. What makes the Torah baked? Empathy, compassion. That's what makes the lechem ofoi. Vayideza nasis ha-Torah b'chinas lechem ofoi mamish shenivla be'ever in the malka. It's this rachamim that makes the Torah baked. The Torah is a fire. When a person feels empathy for their soul, their Yiddishkeit has fire. When you feel the pain of life, if Judaism, somebody once said, if an answer to be able to appreciate an answer, you have to appreciate the question. I taught in a yeshiva for many years Gemara. So I had a call. If you want to learn the Tosfos, you have to deserve it. How do I know you deserve it? You ask the question. If what's bothering Tosfos on Rashi is bothering you, then you deserve to. If you're not bothered by the question, I'm going to bore you with the answer. You understand? If you're not interested what's happening on Mars, my lecture is going to be boring. You're going to ADD on me. If you want to appreciate, you want to get excited by Tosfos' answer, you have to be bothered by the question. I'm not talking about a question where you have to know Shas, a question of logic that actually didn't make sense. If Torah is not a response to a question, so it's just culture, more, let's do more. That's what he's saying. When you have pain, when you experience the pain of the soul, now the passion. If not, I'm just forced into the relationship. If it's a response, if it's a response to the empathy that I'm feeling, it's also true in a relationship with a person, right? I'll ask a married couple, what's the void that you have in your life that the other person is filling? One of the worst things a husband can tell a wife or a wife can tell a husband, usually it happens one way, is, I don't really need you. I'm fine. You would think it's great, right? If a husband tells a wife, you don't have to do anything for me. I'm completely complete. I'm doing you a favor that I'm married to you to help you. It's the worst thing you could say. Why? Because this means this whole relationship is it's futile. It just is. So what's the Torah? Is the Torah a response to angst? Is it a response to a yearning? If it's not a response to a yearning, there's no passion there. What makes people excited about an answer? When they had a question. If they didn't have a question, it's another Torah. What's the question that Torah is answering? What's the question that Judaism is responding to? The same is true with davening. Is your davening answering a question? If it's not answering a question, so why are you doing it? You're doing it because everybody does it, because that's how you were trained. So how much passion is there? So I'm just copying everybody else. But if my soul is burning, if I have pain, and it's not if I have pain. The story of a soul is a painful story. Yosef and Binyamin were separated. Yosef is the soul. Binyamin and Yosef were separated. The soul came down into Egypt. It's hard. Then my davening, my learning is an answer to the question. At least it's a response to the question. This passion. That's called the bread is baked. It's in an oven. So Ahesa Torah. It's hot. It's powerful. It's passionate. In the mashal of marriage, that's a passionate marriage. Yes, you're giving me something very deep. There's a pain that you're filling. You get it? You hear how he touches the story. Yosef nichmeru rachamav, he goes to the room, he cries, he comes out, and he says, Simu lechem zu ha-Torah, because the heart has place for both. And then it's baked. And he finishes, Shenivla be'evrin de malka b'chinas bittel be'evrin seif baruch hu mamish aydei shenivla be'evrin nafshe elikis. Baked bread you can eat. Not baked bread you can't eat. You don't eat dough. It's not geschmack. This Torah can be absorbed in the limbs of the king. What's pshat absorbed in the limbs of the king? It's bottled to Ein Sof. When you eat something, it becomes part of you. So what's pshat? The Torah is absorbed in Hashem. It's completely Ein Sof. It's like the seed we spoke before. The seed in the earth. How? Because it got absorbed in the limbs of my nefesh halakis. My Torah is baked. If it's baked, it can be absorbed. When you have Torah with passion, it's food that becomes part of you. When the Torah is cold, it's not part of you. It's intellectual idea. Everybody knows. You learn an intellectual idea. It's not part of you. When does something become part of you? If it's baked. If it's passionate, then it's part of you. And when something becomes part of you, everything is different. If it's not part of you, fine. Yeah, eating when you're not hungry or eating food that doesn't work with your body. It's like, okay, it's not part of you. But it becomes part of the nefesh halakis. And how does it become part of the nefesh halakis? Like we learned before, the tefillah. So then the Torah is also nivla. V'zeu ashrei mi shebolakan v'talmudei biyodei. Pirush talmudei nisyachet benafshe v'hayu lachadam. This explains the words talmudei biyodei. The Talmud is in his hand. What do you mean in his hand? It's not in his feet. He comes. Talmudei biyodei means, he says, it becomes one with him. Talmudei biyodei, it's integrated. Erhatis. Mashenkin b'lei b'chinas afiya anal loy yachaliv bala beidvari nafshay v'loy yachali is chaim amazon l'nefesh ki ala lechem ha'afui dafke yichya ha'adam. Without this, without baking the Torah, it will never become absorbed in your soul. It will never give life and nutrients to the soul the way it could, because a person lives from baked bread. Because baked bread becomes absorbed in your bloodstream. If the bread is not baked, your keva is the abdomen, your intestines, your abdomen, your digestive organs will not cook the bread. Cook means they will not make it suitable for the body, and the lechem remains separate in the abdomen, and it's loy nivla. You know, sometimes you eat something and it's like stuck, and the body has to reject it or vomit it. If you eat a lot of dough, it's not suitable. When the lechem is afui, if it's not raw, now it could become part of you. The kachem mamash al derech mashal beloy b'chinas afiya anal hadei atayra shalem b'davar b'fnei atzmai v'nafshe davar b'fnei atzmai v'eina mesachadem yachad le'nikra talmudei b'yadai. Without the baking of the Torah, what happens is there's no talmudei b'yadai. It's not in my hand. It's near, selikt. It's not inside of me. It's not absorbed in me. The Torah that I learn is one thing, and my soul remains something else, and the two happen to be together. It's like a relationship with somebody. You both happen to be there. It's not one with you. Why? Because it was not baked. So after planting, you have grinding, you have kneading, and you have baking. If you don't plant, you don't have anything to bake. If you don't grind, you don't have the flour. If you don't knead, you can't bake. You're going to put flour into the oven, fine, you'll have scorched flour. You're not going to have bread. When you go through the whole process, you can finally come to the baking. So the planting is the learning in a way that you reveal in the seed, the koyach hatzemeach delikus, which comes through the davening, achoisi. Then the learning can be in a way of planting. The grinding is the person having that ability to be completely vulnerable and honest and authentic. The kneading is remaining in a place of attachment and connection with an open heart, seeking the dvekus with the water, which is that avakamayim, not separating. The fire is a deeper love, which is not I want to quench my soul with thirst, but rather complete surrender, like fire which breaks everything apart and consumes everything. That's the deepest form of love, that the soul just wants to pour itself out in the Ein Sof without having anything left, separate, be part of the Eish. And the second part of baking is what? The sense of rachamim, the sense of empathy for the experience of the neshama, for the experience of your nitzitz alakus, for all your life's experiences, for all the stories, to be able to really feel that. That's what fire is. That's warmth. That's compassion. It's empathy. It's not judgment. It's really feeling. It's feeling the pain of it with empathy. That's the fire that Yosef experienced. Nichmeru rachamov, like Rashi says. It's the fire which creates tears. But right away, simu lechem, bring bread. Now the bread is going to be baked. It's the empathy, the compassion, which is fire, warmth, that bakes the bread of Torah. It gives it a whole different flavor. And now it's really absorbed in the person. Now it's completely absorbed in the person. Because there's a real relationship. The person has touched their divinity and the divinity in Torah, so now there's a complete merging. Now it became real food for the soul. The soul is in a different place. The soul has been sustained. The soul has been nourished. Based on all this, he comes in the last chapter to explain what he began the Maimer, that when you come into Eretz Yisrael, you right away have Shemitah, followed by 6 years, when it's really not that way. It's 6 years followed by Shemitah. That's how we started the whole Maimer. That's going to be the conclusion in Perek Daled. In the meantime, I'm going to wish you all, my dear friends, a beautiful and extraordinary day, which includes planting and grinding and kneading and baking with empathy. You'll notice that empathy and compassion transforms judgment into warmth, always. It's one of the most powerful tools in communication. If you're talking to somebody that's close to you and you're being triggered, like you're getting me really angry, you're being dishonest, you're being deceptive, you're blind. It's usually I'm being deceptive, but that's what I'm feeling, right? If we remain in that cycle, it's a cycle of violence. It's a cycle of aggression. The way to heal it is always empathy. Can you stop and feel empathy for what you're going through? When you have empathy for something, it opens up. You know how a seed opens up? You know how a plant opens up? You know how challah opens up in the oven? Right? The fire opens it up. Empathy opens it up. When you have empathy, just feel the pain of what you're going through. Don't respond to the pain. Feel the pain. When you respond to the pain, you usually do the wrong thing. When you feel the pain, feel the pain. What's going to happen then is you'll be able to feel the pain of the other person also. And when my pain can connect to your pain, right? That's what we say. When your pain, when I could align love with pain, when I can align love with empathy, when I can align pain with empathy, there's love. If not, if your pain is just triggering me, all my fears, because you're attacking me, right? At best, I can have pity, and usually it's dismissiveness. So that's really what he's saying here. Whenever we go to a place of empathy, the bread gets baked. There's a fire there, there's a warmth there, there's a vadamkeit there. That's the afiyah, that's baking the bread. There's the empathy for the story of your life. You know, I know there's people sitting here or listening or will listen, and everybody has a story. Everybody. Even Nehemiah, even you have a story. Even though it's all bliss, you still have a story. Because your neshama also came on a journey. Everybody has a story. Life guarantees a story for everybody. Right? The Bezriel knows. Everybody has a story. And we have to be able to simply have empathy for the story. It's an intense story. It's a story of Yosef and Binyamin, any way you spin it. Even if you had the best childhood in the world and the best parents in the world and perfect house and everything was perfect. But the journey of a soul is a story. It's a very intense story. He says, Yarda, mata, kol chad l'fumada yoda inish benafshe ulerachem al nitzutz alakus sheba. Can you have compassion for divine infinity which is inside of me and went through the whole journey? And that always triggers deep tears. Tears of identification, tears of love, tears of empathy. Just like what Yosef saw when he looked at Binyamin. All the pain came up. When he looked at Binyamin, he remembered his mother's death. He remembered his brother's hatred. He remembered the day he was thrown to a pit, the separation, what his father felt like. 22 years among promiscuous Ervas Haaretz, horrible place. 22 years, everything, his jail time, Potiphar, it all came out in Binyamin's face, and he saw Binyamin's pain. That grief, you know, yeah, he had to cry. He had to cry. Not because he was a crybaby, because he was paying homage, he was paying honor, right? At Abgeschatzt, he was paying tribute to the genuine experience. Now, when he said, let's take out bread, that's the other part of the soul. I don't know if you know what this expression is. It comes from Zohar. It says that Rebbe Lazar, the son of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, was learning with his father the Sodus of the Beis HaMikdash. He taught him, Rashbi taught him the Sodus of the Beis HaMikdash. When Rebbe Lazar came out of the shir, or his father asked him, how are you feeling? So he said, Chedvet kia biliboy mesitra da, pchiet kia biliboy mesitra da. Joy is etched on one side of my heart, tears etched on the other side of my heart. Because on one hand, Rashbi revealed such powerful secrets of the Beis HaMikdash. It was amazing. It was tremendous joy. On the other hand, this was a generation after the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So there was tremendous grief. So which one is it? The answer is, the heart is big enough to contain both. I can cry for the destruction, and I can celebrate the truth, the awareness, the gift. It's both true. You know what I mean? You can't live without that. That's what Yosef taught. One part of him is crying. Nothing is going to take away the 22 years of pain. On the other hand, simu lechem. Here's the opportunity to connect. There's an opportunity for bread. L'chu lachma b'lachmi. This is the Torah. Simu lechem zu ha-Torah. On the contrary, it's the tears and the grief of the compassion that bakes the bread. It gives the bread a different type of warmth, a different type of passion. You know, when you connect from a place of empathy, responding to the pain, it's a different connection. It's a different connection. When people are in their most vulnerable state of pain, right? And at that moment they give somebody a hug, you'll never have a hug like that in the world. Why? Why? Because it's not a hug. It's a hug that's fueled. It's a hug that was fueled by 30 years of pain, by 30 years of compassion. It's a hug that's fueled by so much. It's a different hug. Okay, if I don't stop now, I'm going to continue talking. So let's stop now. Huh? Some people have a job, you know that, yeah? I don't know how many, but some have a job, Mr. Tama. I have to say that it's very moving that after 2 hours almost nobody is standing up. Like you know, I didn't expect that. Huh? I understand. The heat, you have to land. This is a mimer, huh? This is this mimer is baked, durchgebacken in ein Seif. It's what type of soul did Alter Rebbe have to say this mimer? Not to say it, to experience it and b'meila say it. I'm reading what he wrote. I'm just reading it, but he said it. He didn't read somebody else's mimer.
You're not reading it. You're resonating it to the point that you would not.
I'm trying to resonate and be a channel, but it's his mimer, right? Huh? Yeah. No, the Alter Rebbe didn't write it. The Chayzrim would write it. His brother would write it. When Alter Rebbe would say Maimonim, you know, very often he would start rolling on the ground. I told you. Yeah. Many of Maimonim, the Alter Rebbe would say in middle, he got into such a dveikus, he would stand up and he would start rolling on the ground. Pashut, rolling, as he was talking. In Liajna, the walls were made of concrete, cement, and he bumped his head and he would bleed. So they put cushions on all the walls, so when he would roll and he would bump. Now one of the chayzrim, one of the people who would write, his name was Pinchas Roises. When the Rebbe would start rolling, you would miss words because you couldn't hear. So he would go down and he would roll after the Alter Rebbe, not to miss any words. And when he wrote his Maimonim, you could see sometimes a few words are missing. because the Alter Rebbe made a turn or something, He missed a few words, and he was very medayik, so he wouldn't fill it in based on what he thought. He would leave it empty. So a lot of the Maimonim, nobody wrote diaries, but this is known. A lot of the Maimonim, the Alter Rebbe would get into such a dveikus, because it was all experiential. It wasn't a psat Torah, it wasn't an intellectual Torah. Okay, so now is water, and now is fire, and now is avakamai. It was the experience of it. So the experience of it is a different experience. Our brains are very protective. We have 1,000 defense mechanisms. But if the brain opens up to a place where there's no defense mechanisms and everything is experienced, it's different,
You're putting cushions here too.
Yeah. Okay. Be'ezer Hashem, I hope we'll finish the Maimer Monday morning.
What was the connection when we were talking about the Likkutei Rebbe and Jacobson?
I was bringing out that Gaden and Gehenna are not future things. They're now.
You can smell it now.
If you have a sensor, you could smell Gan Eden, you could smell Gehenna. Yitzchak saw Gehenna.
So what does that have to do with the bread?
Because we were learning that the fruit is just a revelation from the seed. The fruit is not a new thing. The fruit is just an actualization of the seed. The embryo is in the seed. You understand? So when we speak about Gan Eden, Olam Haba, schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The schar of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. The reward of the mitzvah is not a paycheck for the mitzvah. It's the mitzvah itself is the reward of the mitzvah. You understand? The relationship, that is the reward. So why are you calling it a reward? Because in the mitzvah itself, I may not experience this bliss of it. It's just I'm doing a mitzvah. Gan Eden is a place where you see what a mitzvah is. You see what Torah is. You see it. You see the light. It's still not the source. It's yesh me'ayin. But it's a yesh in which you see the geschmack. There's 3 levels. The koyach hatzameach, the fruit, and the seed. Three madregas. Yeah. Don't thank me. Thank the Alter Rebbe. And probably the Alter Rebbe would say, don't thank me, thank Hashem. Just a channel. A grace and dank. The truth is, Shabbos we're going to learn over there, so maybe Shabbos we have a share there. It's raining? Oh, okay, so put it here and we'll take it Shabbos, it's fine. Put it here, they'll take it Shabbos, it's not a big deal.
The geschmack, the feeling is the Tam Gan Eden.
It's not on the time.
Tam Gan Eden is on sorry, you can't even, but it's the best we could ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's up to cream.
In a gedam. Oh, that's powerful.
How can psychology be? How can this not be based on psychology? How can psychology not be based on this?
Yeah, you see. You have here in 2 lines 20 works of psychology. It's the whole source of now build the courage to come out and continue with your life. I mean, it's you have here in 4 lines literally the struggle of psychology, and the ability to synthesize the two. Being fully present emotionally doesn't come at the expense of living. And living doesn't have to come at the expense of feeling. That's literally what he's describing here. And also the depth of the empathy, the depth of all empathy is rooted in this. Yeah, and it's rooted in the soul and in the pain of the soul. Hafla of a fella, huh? Yeah.
When I started learning Hasidus, I found something in the Gemara. The Yochanan says, "Ever Kapten Yesh Ba'adam,
Masbiyoy marivoy, marivoy masbiyoy.
It's a hard Gemara because, what's the problem? Of Hashem say that they're talking about Avedas. So when I started learning Hasidus, I learned this Gemara, and something came into my head that Aver Cotton, the Aver Cotton represents relationship. The ultimate relationship over here is the relationship between Eden and Hashem. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying that if you give something for this relationship, if you start playing with this relationship, then Mariva, you're going to be hungry, you're going to want more and more and more and more. You don't give it so much.
It's going to remain hungry.
That's what I feel with Hasidus.
Yeah. Ein Sof. Say Ein Sof.
On us base or Gimel, I don't know if it's true, the Shoshana, the Savo'u, the Rebbe said some or something, the Baron cut the got up and said Shoshana. Over here, it's not the Rebbe. He says, he even uses the words,
The Vilna Gaon says it even sharper. The Vilna Gaon says this word even sharper. The Vilna Gaon writes in 3 places. I saw it myself. In Mishlei. He has a Pirush on Mishlei. He says it in 3 places. And he says it, they bring it also in Evan Shleima, Kolator, other Svarim of his. That somebody who does not know Pneumius HaTorah, real, cannot paskin a din in Nigla the Torah. Can't trust the halacha.
So how did we survive so far?
That's what the Vilna Gaon says. Why? Why not? He learned Shas, he learned Torah, he learned Shulchan Aruch. Not talking about an Amaretz. He knows everything. He didn't touch Kabbalah, he didn't touch Pneumius HaTorah, he didn't touch. That's what the Vilna Gaon says. And the reason is because he doesn't have the context. He doesn't have the context. There's a neshama. Every halach has a neshama. It's like you have 2 types of doctors. You have doctors that just, textbook, and then you have doctors.
You open up the book, okay.
Yeah.
That could be that stop the smicha.
As I schreibt it. I'm just telling what he says. What's his word? His word says, he doesn't mean if you're paskening what it says in Shulchan Aruch, if milk fell into the cholent. He means to really say a psak halacha that's where you're taking responsibility for it. You're not just quoting a Shal Setruvas Cham Sofer. So he says you really have to you have to know the soul of it. That's what he writes. He says this clearly. He says you can't pasken halacha. What's the big deal? Was the shayr is a shayr, a pot is a pot. Was supposed to get atzilas, with bria, with yitzira, with sviras. Was hakstar China? So this is the Vilna Gaon.
So it was 700 years ago. The rabbinic leadership, they had it. They knew.
The biggest one, the Beis Yosef was the biggest poskim were. The Tanoim and Amirayim, it says they learned Sefer Yetzirah, they made a goylam. Rabbi killed Reb Zayn, and then he made Chiyas HaMesim the next day. So, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knew the language of animals. He knew the language of trees. He knew the language of Shadim, Rabbi Akiva went into the Pardes.
In the Rishonim? In that era, there were also?
It was hidden, but the Ramban, you're talking about some of the greatest Mekabalim. It was more hidden. Like
Rashi and Tosos, they're just not talking about it on the daf tomorrow?
They didn't talk about it. It was not revealed then. It's called Chachma Nistara. It was concealed Chachma. Now Arizal really... the Magen Avraham, the biggest poskim. The Bach was a big makubal. The Beis Yosef was a huge makubal. The Vilna Gaon, Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes that the Vilna Gaon spent more time learning Kabbalah than learning Nigla. He writes this. Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes this. He spent more time learning Kabbalah than learning Nigla. What does that mean? I'm just saying, it's a big chid. People don't realize that. That's how seriously he took it. That's not a derech for everybody. Most people should do the other way. But it just brings out, you're talking about it's a serious thing. It's not a bizarre. It's the official theology of Judaism. It's Kabbalah is not mystical miracles, with a kameya that they give you in Tzvas. You're talking about the official theology of Judaism. It's the underlying, it's the physics of Judaism. The Rebbe Rashab once said, the Welt sagt, as Chassidus is a beard of Kabbalah. The emes is, Kabbalah is a beard of Chassidus. The world says that Chassidus is an explanation on Kabbalah. Really, Kabbalah is an explanation on Chassidus. That's what he said. The Rashab. What's Pshat? So I think Pshat is like this. In science, there's mathematics and there's physics. It happens to be that physics uses mathematics to describe physics. But physics is not mathematics. Physics is the inner workings of creation, the way they understand it. They use the language of mathematics. So today, if you don't know the language of mathematics, you can't understand physics. It's just using the language, but it's not mathematics. Lahavdil, you don't like when I say lahavdil, because everything is one. He's already after oneness, right? I'm saying lahavdil because the way science and physics are portrayed, not because be'etzem it's...
It's not there yet.
Yeah, Kabbalah is the mathematics of Achdus Hashem. Chassidus is the physics of Achdus Hashem. It's different. That's why you can learn Kabbalah and not understand anything it's saying. You don't understand Einoid Movada, huh?
It's the actualization of physics. Is the actualization of mathematics. Mathematics doesn't have a substance to itself.
Right. Mathematics is the equations, it's the setup. So Kabbalah will have that. Za meets Malchus and Ak meets Hakudim and Hakudim meets Nekudim. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant mathematics. It's divine mathematics. It's how all the systems work.
You need to apply it.
You need to apply it and the soul of the system. The soul, the understanding, the neshama of the system, that's Chassidus.
The problem with science is that there's a theory that it's all a mathematical equation.
Yeah, that's why he said, Kabbalah is a beard of Chassidus. You understand? Kabbalah is a beard of Chassidus. Kabbalah is that neshama and it expresses it in all of the systems and intricate systems and connections and relationships. It's a whole world. You could study. It's a whole universe. But it's a universe that's... So why am I saying that? Because just like he says here that Nigla without Pneumius is like the seed without the earth. So Kabbalah without Chassidus is also that way. You know all the Svidus and names and you have... You're not Teufus the Pneumius. It's systems. It's beautiful systems. And the real Kabbalists felt it. So they were like there. Wasn't they were like in it. Right? The real Kabbalists. But there are a lot of people that learn Kabbalah and this. It's oisius and it's holy and it's Torah, but it's just like a person could learn Shor Shanogach, right? And not Teufus the Pneumius of Torah. The same is true with Kabbalah. I know Gematrius and I know Svidus and I know where Atzilus happens and I know how Ma works and it falls into Ban and then there's Netzutzes, the Shviris HaKelim. Chassidus Shviris HaKelim is the experience of life. It's what's happening in your heart. It's a different Indian. It's a neshama of it.